The Nuggets agree to terms with a former first-team All-NBA center and former All-Star. Unfortunately, it might be the worst player in the NBA. This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Glad to have you guys with us late on a Thursday night after the Colorado Avalanche celebrated their championship Stanley Cup victory. I was there for the parade, Adam. It was a great time. I went down with the family because my wife basically was like, I need to see some joy in the world. You're going to do this for me? And I was like,
can I tell you something? There was a lot of that. That is a good reason to go to a parade.
Yeah.
I always say sports, they're more important than people think in that one way, and that they do bring a city together. And a parade is like the embodiment of that.
And so I was like, but you know, free agency starts a couple hours, and like I didn't sleep a lot. She's like, we're going. I was like, okay, get in the car, kids. So did that. It was awesome. It was really great. Saw lots of awesome stuff. Landy was great. Nate was great. A lot of good times. Kempfer was great. JT Comfer was running around. It was crazy. It was awesome. Really good time. Much better time than watching the Denver Nuggets in free agency. We'll get to a lot we got to sort through right now with the Denver Nuggets on the first night of free agency. Not a lot happened, and that's kind of the problem. We'll talk about that throughout the show, basically on tonight's episode. I want to let you know that tonight's episode is brought to you by Arcade1Up. Locked On Nuggets is partnering with Arcade1Up to give away 3 free NBA JAM Shaq machines. That's right, 3. These are the guys known for making the incredible retro 3/4 scale at-home arcade games like Pac-Man, Golden Tee, and more. Enter to win at arcade1up.com/lockedon. That's arcade1up.com/lockedon for your chance to win one. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Adam Mares. You can find him on Twitter at Adam_Mares. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free, and we are available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can join the chat. I don't have chat working right now, but the rest of my audio system is working. I'm hoping I have solved the problems that were giving us issues the other night. So let me know if we start having problems in the old chat, Adam. I think for right now, knock on wood, we're good. What is not good is the Denver Nuggets selection of their first free agency acquisition, which is the only move that was announced. 2 moves were announced shortly after the trade or the free agency deadline of 6 p.m. Eastern. The second lesser move is, well, actually it's a more important move, quite honestly, in terms of the minutes he's going to get and the rotation and everything else. Davon Reed coming in as he signed to the roster, no longer a two-way player, the move that probably should have been made back at the deadline last time. He is now a full-time member of the Denver Nuggets. We expected this. We've talked about it on the show about how we expected them to bring him in. But the new acquisition, I heard about this last night, and I texted you, and I said, hey, I'm hearing this. And you were like, I told you, I was like, well, I was like, you're not going to like this. I was like, it's a former Clipper. And you listed some names. I was like, no. And I gave you the initials. And it came true today. DeAndre Jordan is the newest Denver Nugget. And look, I want to be clear on this because there's a fine line that I gotta walk here, which is we're often criticized for being too nice and buddy and kind to the front office and to the Denver Nuggets organization. And I think, obviously, sometimes media can be a little bit hyper-reactionary on these things. I will just tell you this. There is absolutely no reason to assign DeAndre Jordan. There isn't one. The only reason is one that is wrapped in tinfoil, and it's that DeAndre Jordan and Kevin Durant, who requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets today.
I mean, stop.
I'm just listing. That's the only reason. Because
if that's the best reason, then okay.
Then there's not a good reason. Right. There's no reason to do this. DeAndre Jordan really is. I looked this up. I was like he's a former All-Star, one-time All-Star, first-team All-NBA. Like, he was a first-team All-NBA selection.
I remember how controversial that section was as well, actually.
He was really good with that Clippers team. That Clippers team had like the best net rating in the league for multiple years. That was many seasons ago. And I've put out the numbers. Look, I can't get her. You can argue with me about plus minus all day long, and you can make the point of like, well, it's about who's around you. Well, he's been around Kevin Durant. That's who he's been around. He's been on the floor with Kevin Durant a lot, and yet he has been a massive minus. He was with Luka Doncic and was a massive minus. Like, teams have lost when he has been on the floor. He has not had a positive raw plus minus since 2016-17, 5 seasons ago. Since then, his teams have lost the minutes he's been on the court, and it's not like it's been close. It's not like a minus 20.
No.
It's several minus hundreds. He is a plodding traditional center that does not make great rotations anymore because of the limitations as he's gotten older. He does not help move the ball. He does not replicate anything Jokic does. I am not saying that I'm absolutely certain that this isn't going to work out. There's lots of twists and turns in NBA careers, and we've seen it in Denver with Austin Rivers and others. I cannot in any way say that this was a good move, an understandable move, or anything but a waste of a roster spot, even for a 1-year minimum veteran guarantee.
You had a conspiracy theory. I think this is a better conspiracy theory. Denver's just trying to obliterate on-off numbers for Jokic. They're trying to find a stronger. I mean, look, their starting lineup gotten even better, so that the on is going to be even higher, and the off might somehow be lower. So we might get a new record. I don't like it. I mean, yeah, DeAndre Jordan's not a guy I really enjoy. As a player, I think he's not my type of guy. He's not a guy that I think is very good, as you mentioned. I think he's appeared to be like checked out, I guess, for the last several seasons. And I don't mean, when I say several, I don't mean 1 or 2. Like, we've been in a panic. I mean, even before that, like prior to that, do you remember when he just like fouled himself out against Jokic? This was like 4 years ago. Jokic had him in the torture chamber, and he like gave an intentional foul and walked to the bench. And it was like, yeah, I'm out. Like, take me out of this game. What do you have me in here for? That was like 4 years ago. The one saving grace of this, I mean, if there is, to the extent that there is a saving grace, I know that the Nuggets are in a point right now where they need some leadership and some veteran presence in that way. And everything they say is that he provides that. So I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Sorry. No.
Look, I don't buy it either, Matt. This is not. I don't want you to say that you're disagreeing with me. You're disagreeing with the position I am shoehorning in here.
Fair. Yeah, I understand, buddy. I understand this is not a good time. I get it. Here's the thing. I do think that we have to, as much as I'm a big fan of, look, you got to try and find all angles of this and really try to understand things, because there's a lot of things that go on in the NBA that people don't really think about and understand, especially online. Like, they just look at things through the prism of the stat production, the highlights, the online personality, the money, and the numbers. And there's layers that go into that we talk about this all the time. There simply is never, ever going to be a case that what DeAndre Jordan is going to bring to the table is going to be worth a roster spot. That's really the issue here, is that it's a roster spot, and they've only got one left. And so now it's like, okay, are you going to let go of Vlatko? Because that's what they probably should do, but I don't know if that's what Jokic wants them to do. Other than that, are you going to make another trade? And so we'll get into kind of the conversation about the broader moves. But when we talk about DeAndre Jordan, I just feel like I know how this is going to go, because I've seen it play out I've seen this play out the last couple of seasons with the Mavericks, the Knicks, the Nets, the Lakers, and the Sixers. 5 teams, and I can tell you that each and every one of them have had the same thing. They bring him in with the intention to play him because he was good back when their key guys were good. They play him. They suffer. They refuse to give in, and eventually they have to bench him. Like, my prediction is that DeAndre Jordan is probably benched by Christmas. And to that end, if this fails as badly as I expect it to fail, it's a minimum 1 year veteran guarantee. Like, you bite the bullet and you move on.
Is it possible that he wasn't brought into play? Like, we keep thinking of the next move. If it's Jeff Green, is it possible Jeff Green's the center or Zeke Najee's the center, and they go to back to a 2 power forward lineup somehow?
Then that's just as bad, because then you're not learning from last season's mistakes, which I think I do think that there's something to be said for, like, well, look, we think a lot of it was the guard play, and that's fair, and that's improved. Like, Ish and Bones will provide better guard play on the second unit. We saw that in the second half of the year. But the other thing we saw in the second half of the year was DeMarcus Cousins helped him out.
Oh, yeah.
And if you want to say, like, look, we had Cousins brought the same thing that he usually brings, and we thought that there was locker room issues there. Whether they can still bring him back, but it'd be very weird to bring DeMarcus Cousins and DeAndre Jordan to have 3 centers. To go from no centers to 3 centers.
They're not bringing Boogie back.
Right. So assuming that they're not, then I think we got to look at this from the perspective of now they're forced back into playing small ball, which didn't work last year, and they don't have a good option for it. Zeke is more of a 3 than a 5. Even if he puts on muscle, that's going to take away some of his versatility, which is one of his strengths. You don't want to do that.
Also, he hasn't played a full season. Like,
right?
Even if he was a 5, like, there would be the whole other level of, is he a basketball player, which I believe in. Like, by the way, I'm a Zeke buyer, but it's unproven.
Some of my favorite comments today were the Nuggets got rid of Facu Campazzo and then found the center version of Facu Campazzo. That was impressive. That was a good one. I like Chad Andrews' tweet, which was Chad from 1043 said the Nuggets felt so bad about signing the best player in basketball. They felt like they had to sign the worst player in basketball. That one was good. I like that one. Look, the front office gets to make their claim and be like, we're gonna be fine. You guys wait and see. And if it works out, we have never shied away from saying we were wrong. We have never shied away from being like, when they brought in Austin, you and I were both like, and that worked out great.
Yep.
Right?
Austin
so that's the whole thing.
What I thought he was. Yep.
Is like, it's our job to react to the moves and to talk about the moves and to analyze the moves. And the analysis I have is this is bad. This is bad, and there's not even.
Can I say this? The DeAndre Jordan piece of this is bad, and like I really don't like it. But it's the DeAndre Jordan piece and Dave Reed being the pieces that were done. And I don't know. Denver still has one more roster spot. They still have their taxpayer mid-level exception. But even that, like, I try to go through and think, what makes me go into the sea? What is one move that you can go into and I'd be like, ooh, I like the Nuggets bench now. Like, I like where they're at. Otto Porter's out there. They got him. I would feel a little bit better. I don't know that I would solve I still would be looking at the roster and thinking like, some weird parts. But maybe that would be it. I just don't think it's going to happen. I kind of think the Nuggets might be done.
Let's talk about that after the break. Let's get into the central key question, which is everyone looks at this. Everyone looks at what the Nuggets have done, and everyone has come to the conclusion that the Nuggets are trying to save money. You and I have a different view.
Well, I want to hear your view on it because people know mine. They are very upset about it. And again, it's funny because it's not a lesser critique. It's just just a different. People think it's like you're covering. Nope. I'm just saying I think we got to solve a crime. I think the crime is a different one than you think.
Right. We'll talk about that after the break. But first, I want to tell you about Arcade 1 Up. Boom shakalaka. We have big news. The one, the only NBA Jam is back. Arcade 1 Up, the leader in at-home retro arcade games, is not only bringing the best game ever back, but they've made it bigger than ever with a, wait for it, Shaq Edition machine. I wonder who would win between Shaq and DeAndre Jordan. People are obsessed with NBA Jam, and I'm thrilled to tell our listeners that you can once again play hoops with NBA legends in this arcade classic. I will say Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan would have been pretty awesome in NBA Jam. They would have been great because, you get the Brandon Knight dunk, which I showed to somebody for the first time the other day. They had never seen it. It was absolutely insane. I want to recreate that dunk in NBA Jam. Jump Clear across the court and set the ball on fire in one of the first sports games ever to feature real and digitized NBA licensed teams. No fouls, no free throws, and no quarters required. Compete with friends and family through all new Wi-Fi leaderboards, making you more connected than ever. Pre-order now from arcade1up.com. That's arcade1up.com for an estimated early September ship date. Arcade 1Up is the place for fun. They've got even more classics like Golden Tee, Mortal Kombat, and many others starting at just $399. Check this out. They're giving away an NBA JAM Shaq edition to a Locked On listener. Just enter for a chance to win a game console for your man cave at arcade1up.com/lockedon. That's arcade, the number 1 up.com/lockedon. You've got till July 8th to enter to win an NBA Jam Shaq Edition console. Don't miss out. Enter today. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making us part of your day and your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Back here with Adam Mares. Talk about the Nuggets and free agency and not a great. You know what's funny though, man, is like after the draft, I was like, look, it's in their court. They got to upgrade. They got to get a deal done and upgrade the two-guard position. And they did that, and yet we're still kind of back here. Like, they upgraded at the start. Like, I personally think that for a fit for team, KCP and Ish Smith is an upgrade over Monte Morris and Will Barton, given that they have Bones Highland. And yet we're still kind of here. So they dumped J. Mike for the $8 million trade player exception, and they pick up the 30th pick. Okay? So they don't wind up moving the pick. And so everyone goes like, they didn't want to move the pick. They were just dumping money. And then they don't do anything today. And everyone goes, they didn't want to do anything. They were just dumping money.
Well, you missed the trade part too. The trade that they made also brought back less money, so it also dumped money.
Yeah. And so, but here's the thing is like,
the Barton.
Was there a player that from Washington, like if they'd thrown in like some random player on Washington who's not very good, just to add on more salary, would you feel better about that? Probably not.
It depends on who. I would have to go through and look.
Right, like if they had like Rui, I'd be like, that's a really great deal, but you're probably not getting Rui.
I mean,
right?
at this point, I'm trying to look at who their centers were. Thomas Bryant or something like. Is there another center on the list? Like, is literally any center? Is there in the G League? Do they have a G League center? Yannick Nzosa. If they would have traded for Yannick Nzosa,
right? So, the way I would tell you, and like, look, it was Game 3 of the Western Conference playoffs first round. Game 3. I walked into the arena, and like they just gotten waxed in those first two games, and it looked like they were gonna get swept. And they got gentlemen swept, so it's not like they played a lot, but they did not get two from the Warriors. I was sitting there with Ryan Blackburn, and he's vexed about how the series is going, and I was like, I don't mean to do this, but I think I'm going to make your day worse. And he was like, why? And I said, do you really think that Stan Kroenke is going to watch this team go out in the first round in a sweep and be willing to pay the bill that he set to pay for it? Do you really think that that's going to happen? And Ryan was just like, oh God. Oh God. Like I felt terrible because I basically just like, I shattered. I broke Ryan. Adam, I shouldn't do that. I should not break Ryan. And so my starting block position is to be skeptical of, again, going to return to this from the whole Tim Conley affair. Not the Kroenkes, one Kroenke. There is one Kroenke I am concerned about his spending habits with. And that person, I still think, Stan Kroenke, I still think that person operates in a very old school, why am I paying for kind of way. I will say this. I think the problem now is that it's impossible for us to get a genuine answer, right? If I ask them, like, did you really mean to take the 30th pick? Like, were you planning on keeping both those picks?
Oh, it's a hindsight pick like that. Of course.
They're gonna say, absolutely. We love Peyton Watson. He was the best player on the board. We really think he can be something.
Draft went exactly the way we drew it up. Yeah.
If
it might
that
be, by the way,
exactly.
It might actually be.
If that was what they thought, that's what they would say. If they wanted to move the pick and couldn't, they would still say that they wanted to keep the pick, right?
100%,
yeah, there's no value. What is the upside telling me that you made a mistake? What's the upside in that, right? Like, it's nice to do for me, but it doesn't help you, right? And some of this is just the dynamics of the relationship. furthermore, I'll tell you, like, it's been made clear to me that the moves that have been made are not built along those lines. It's not just like, let's dump salary. And fans are basically like, then why haven't you done anything? And the answer, unfortunately, is that their options were limited because of what they have to work with. And then the market has gotten way more aggressive, I think, than most. I've seen this before, and a lot of teams are in this spot. Look at how many guys are going for the MLE right now, the taxpayer MLE. Like,
well, this is part of it. All the guys that we talked about at wanting Oladipo, Gary Harris, all of the different pieces, they all went for more than the MLE. This is part of it.
Right.
Gary Harris went for like $16 million.
Yeah. So, and I'll tell you, I've heard that Gary Payton II, which would be like the best option available on the board. It would be an absolute dream if the Nuggets landed Gary Payton II. I've heard already that Gary Payton II has offers on the board for more than the taxpayer MLE.
Right.
That his offers are higher than that already.
And all of them, if you can go down through the whole list, the only guy that was made a list that went under that was Daniel House. Right. Daniel House signed a 2-year, $6.5 million deal, or something like that, or $8 million deal. But he went to Daryl Morey's 76ers, where he had a relationship before. So I don't know, but it's the only one. Every other player, you go, oh, that went above what Denver had.
Yeah, like not what Denver was willing to pay, what Denver is able to pay under the luxury, under the salary cap. Like,
and again, this is not an excuse maker for something like you. If something doesn't work out for you, it's just, hey, you should have had a different plan. I'm just saying, and I don't know if the plan was. I don't think Denver went into this thinking they were going to sign maybe necessarily those guys. I actually think they probably knew the market. The point is you approach the entirety of the offseason, you did not end up getting an upgrade at small forward defensive position. And here we are. You still have a taxpayer mid-level exception. There's a few guys out there that maybe you could swoop in at the last minute and make that work. Bruce Brown, Otto Porter Jr. I don't expect it, but maybe. I guess we can just put that little caveat in there. But the bottom line is you went into this knowing you needed to fill that spot, and it does not appear to be that it's going to be filled.
Yeah, and they've still got the trade player exception, which I'm always skeptical of those being used, but you have that to work with, but it's not for more than 11. You can't pair it with things. Like, they are limited. And the reason that they're limited is not their own spending habits. It's that they have 3 max players and Aaron Gordon on a $100 million deal on contract. Like, I got to stress this, where they needed to be aggressive. They traded a starter, and they're like 2 starters from last year's team. They're starting 2 guard and their 6-man, right, for what they feel is an upgrade, and you and I have agreed is an upgrade. Right. I would say that qualifies as aggressive. Do I think that there have been? Ultimately, I look at the draft and it gets worse the more further I get away from it. Like, I was kind of like, well, it's gonna be fine because look, I gotta see what they're gonna do in free agency. Are they gonna upgrade Will Barton? And they did. The problem, I think, is just that you do look at the entire roster, and this is why the DeAndre Jordan thing matters. If they hadn't signed DeAndre Jordan, and they had gotten almost any other piece, right? We're probably looking at this and being like, look, they added KCP, Ish Smith, and then this player. And, like, that's a pretty good job of revamping the bench unit and the starting unit. This is a different team. They've been pretty aggressive. But instead, it's basically like, we don't know, like, what Ish's role is going to be. Ish's role is always a little inconsistent. I'm very high on him, but not the most efficient guy, bad defender. KCP's an upgrade, right? The
starting lineup's awesome. The starting lineup I still believe in, like, wholeheartedly. I mean, the durability of it is in question, but the 5 guys I think fit really, really nicely.
And so some of this that I do think kind of like, there's 2 ways to look at this, which is, I can make the argument and say, look, I don't really, they're going to win 50 plus games. They're going to be a top 5 seed in the Western Conference. And in the playoffs, you're only playing 8 guys anyway. So does this really, truly, honestly matter that much? But the problem is, and like I was talking to Blackburn about this, and he makes a really good point, which is just the margin for error. The margins. Like, you suffer an injury, and Jokic is out a month with an ankle injury.
Oh yeah, that's the big one. Like
Yeah,
you now. I mean, Jokic is pretty durable, knock on wood. But now you look at it and go like, you better hope he stays there.
And you compare it with a team like the Clippers, who have depth upon depth upon depth upon depth. Like Kawhi Leonard can take off whenever he wants, and they're still going to be able to roll out a really good lineup every night. Like they're still going to have, they're going to have playoff caliber players in pretty much every rotation. Like 3 different rotations, 1 through 15. Like there's just not a guy on the Clippers that I'm like, oh yeah, that guy can't play in the playoffs.
Yeah, they have a lot of guys. I mean, they even being able to sign like Amir Coffey was a guy that, by the way, went for a price Denver could have got after, but he was a restricted agent. I'm not sure Denver had interest in trying that. And maybe if you offered more, maybe Ballmer just matches more. I don't know. But yeah, like they have Amir Coffey as like their 14th guy. He's a good player.
So that's like the difference between where the two teams are at, which is like the Nuggets right now. And again, a lot of this is they had so much talent that, and again, I'll also make this point. Some of this is that it'd be one thing if MPJ didn't work out for whatever reason on court, right? If it was like, man, he's really talented, but he just can't get it, and he doesn't know how to play with Jokic, and he's a defensive liability, and we just think that we need to probably go in a different direction. But that's not the situation. It's, hey, we don't know how many games this guy's going to be able to play in his NBA career because he's had multiple back surgeries. So, that's not a viable option to upgrade. It's not, right? You're not going to generate the trade offers that you're going to want for MPJ, even if you were looking to move him. And so right now, their best course of action is to go in and be like, we're going to lean on our starters, and we're going to, try and rack up early wins, and then maybe rest manage them as the season goes along, and develop internally with Bones Highland and Zeke Naji, and hopefully, Christian Brown comes through. They do have one more slot, right? They still have.
I think maybe 2 because Vlatko has not officially been signed, so I think there might be 2.
Right. So, if they don't re-sign Vlatko, that will actually, I think, be a lot better. That opens up more possibilities, even if it's just getting through free agency and seeing who the value guy is at the end. I honestly think there's probably some value there. Whether it's if a Cody Martin slips through the cracks or whatever it is,
right.
To be able to look at those kind of options. So there's still possibilities out there for the Nuggets. So the reason I say that is less to be like, hey guys, it could still wind up great, and more be like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, they completely screwed up free agency when we are less than, 7 hours in or 8 hours in, right? So
there's just not a lot of incentive left. I mean, we all know this. You say that, but free agency 5 minutes in was half over.
Yeah, but I'll also say this: we're going to see. I think there's a lot of for lack of a better term, constipation based off of the fact that the Kevin Durant thing threw a wrench in a lot of stuff as far as trades go. And there is a holdup, I think, on a number of deals based off of teams trying to figure out what happens with the Kevin Durant situation, which impacts, the Kevin Durant thing could impact the Gobert thing, which could impact the Ayton thing, which could, right. There's all these layering things that on top of it, and that could open up more trade possibilities for Denver, depending on what they have. But again, though, I will say, I downplayed it on draft night, and I'll go back and come back to this. It'd be sure nice to have the 2027 first rounder right now. It just would. I gotta be real on that. You'd rather right now, based on where the roster is at and what you're trying to accomplish, you'd rather have the 2027 than Peyton
That was
Watson.
the thing about that trade is when they did it, I didn't love it, but we just said let's see what else happens, and what else has happened makes you go yeah, I don't love that. I mean, maybe Peyton. Now you look at it and go, the only way you really love it is if Peyton Washington really pans out, which I'm rooting for. But come on, that's. One, if it does happen, it probably takes a while. And 2, the odds of it happening everybody has to admit, are super low. A 30th pick, project player, the odds are just against you.
Let's take a break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about some of the options remaining, as well as there was a little bit of good news, which was accepted, but still kind of a cause for celebration because Nikola Jokic isn't going anywhere. We'll talk about that and more when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I want to tell you about Sakara. Feeling your best starts with what you eat, and Sakara helps you live a healthy, balanced lifestyle and truly enjoy it with delicious, plant-rich transformational nutrition that builds a foundation for living in your best body. Sakara is a wellness company anchored in food as medicine on a mission to nourish your body through the power of plants. Their nutritionally designed, chef-crafted breakfast, lunches, and dinners are made with powerful plant-rich ingredients, helping boost your energy, support your digestion, curb your sugar cravings, and get your skin glowing. Plus, it's all delivered right to your door, ready to eat. And right now, Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/lockedon20 or enter code LOCKEDON20 at checkout. That's Sakara, SAKARA.com/lockedon20 to get 20% off your first order. Sakara.com/lockedon20. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for making this part of your day and your first listen each and every day. If you want to support the show, make sure to check out the YouTube channel, subscribe, turn on notifications. If you're a business, whether in Denver or around the globe, and you want to advertise on this fine program, because you're just like, man, I love Adam. How can I give Adam more money? You can definitely reach out. We do have advertising spots. Great way to reach our great audience of listeners and watchers, as we have 216 folks in the chat here late on a Thursday night. Adam, so the Nuggets, like I mentioned, they could have two slots depending on what they do with Vlatko. I still kind of consider... Let me ask you this, because you're the Jokic whisperer, right? What do you think Jokic's reaction would be if Denver was like, look, we need the roster space, man. It's not going to happen for Vlatko here. We appreciate.
I can't speak to this one because I really don't know. I don't know. I can't say that requires a more intimate knowledge of Jokic than I possess.
So in short, what we're trying to say is Vlatko is Jokic's best friend on the team, right? And there's a certain, I think, idea that permeates that the biggest reason that Vlatko has been on roster is because of that relationship. Not necessarily that Vlatko has been a non-factor, because I actually thought he played pretty well this year.
I think he's fine. I think he's.
Yeah, I thought he was. I think
earlier I said he's a really good spare tire.
Yeah,
a spare tire that gets you 30 to 50 miles. You're not going to drive cross country on it, but if you need to get to work and back, not going to ruin your day.
The Nuggets could go the other way, and they could double down on Jokic compadres, because Juancho Hernan-Gomez is on the market. He got released by the Jazz, so they need a big.
Bo Cruz, bring him in.
Bo Cruz, bring him in. I don't think this is going to happen. I don't even know their interest. They've been coy about this, and their coyness could just be they're not interested, and I'm reading it wrong. You know what I will tell you is kind of interesting? The offers for Bruce Brown have not been what I thought they would be. I have not heard offers on Bruce Brown where I'm like, oh wow, they're never going to get him. The Nuggets are never going to be able to get him.
Right.
A little bit of a truncated market. Now, some of that may be that the Nets are still trying to figure out what they're doing with their two franchise superstars. And so they're trying to figure that out before they just retain Bruce Brown. That seems like a pretty likely option. But, that's one name I would probably look at. The Martin twins, I think, is another one that we've talked about previously on the show. You mentioned there's a lot of names off of the list, and there are still some names on there that I think could probably be signed and brought in. Are you a little surprised that Austin Rivers does not look like he's going to be part of this roster next season?
I mean, I would feel better if he was.
Okay.
Given the guys that are here, Austin Rivers, I know what I'm getting, out of him. So I guess a little bit.
What are you most concerned about with the roster right now? What's the one thing that you just look at the roster and go, that you circled this area and you're like, that's the biggest problem right now?
I mean, it really is the entire bench, but if you wanted a specific spot, it's the small forward spot because, and I guess you could even go to point guard a little bit on this, although Bones can slide over, but it would be small forward because Michael Porter, if he gets hurt in any capacity or if he needs, oh my God, I lost him again. If he lost us a little bit, Matt Moore's killing me. You guys don't know is on the back end editing these every time he creates a new file, it becomes an absolute nightmare. Matt, you're killing me. You're killing Matt. No, the small forward spot, because if Michael Porter goes down, just as a thought experiment, Michael Porter misses, let's say he's going to miss 10 games. Who is the starting small forward? Is it Davon Reed? Is it Bones Highland? You just move him into the lineup, maybe move KCP over, and then what's your bench? I don't know. Is it Christian Brown? Is it Peyton Watson? Is it Zeke Naji? Is it Jeff Green? Jeff Green, honestly. It's probably Jeff Green at this point, which I mean, stopgap, I guess. Maybe you could survive that for 10 games. Jeff Green started a lot last year, and it was fine. That's the position that I look at that I think is a little bit thin, thinner than especially when we talk about defensively. And then forget just about the starting in the regular season, because I still think Denver's starting unit is so good that it's going to – a lot of these flaws, as much as they're going to make the season more stressful and the margins, I think the Nuggets are going to be able to survive it because that starting lineup is so good. But we get into a playoff series, can you go – they have a great offensive lineup. Their starting lineup's great, and if you move Bones into one of like KCP spot or whatever, or Aaron Gordon's spot if you play small, you're unstoppable, unguardable offensively, but you're really weak defensively. Defensive lineup you can go to that is, okay, we really just need defenders all over the court. I don't know who it is. You've got your starting lineup. Do you swap out Michael Porter, and who would you put into his spot? There's like nobody that is really going to be more impactful there, no specific guy. So that would be the spot that I look at that I'm most concerned about. But overall, it's the entire bench. Entire bench unit right now. Ish, Bones, Davon, Zeke, and then Jeff Green or DeAndre Jordan, one of those two. That's not a very good one. I do think there is a scenario which, and this is, again, like I don't think it's likely, but there is a scenario where maybe Bones becomes the point guard. You have a guy like a Christian Brown who becomes who can be the backup too. Maybe Davon, Zeke, DeAndre Jordan. Maybe that works. Matt just texted me, says totally different problem. Like, fantastic. So I don't know, but that I don't know where the Nuggets are. They still have a trade to make if they should want. They could still make a trade. I don't know who it was that was in the comments saying it's just day one of free agency. I just don't know. They're almost out of moves. They got to spend the next pair mid-level exception. Otto Porter's out there. Bruce Brown is out there. Dante DiVincenzo is out there. Austin Rivers is out there. Derek is out there. Those are kind of the names that I look at that they could bring in. With the exception of maybe Austin Rivers, I'm not sure if any of those guys create the clarity of, okay, now I know what the Nuggets are. So none of those moves are like super exciting, but maybe one of those guys elevates you to feel a little more confident. But let's say it's Austin Rivers. What is your second unit? If it were me, it would be Bones Highland, Austin Rivers, Davon Reed, Zeke Naji. It's so weird to put DeAndre Jordan. I just can't wrap my head around him being there, but he's there. So DeAndre Jordan. If Austin Rivers was here, that would be the line. Like Ish Smith then moves into the third point guard. He would probably play a lot. He'd still be a weapon, but that would be it. If they got like a Dante DiVincenzo, probably the same thing. Bones is the backup point guard. Derek Jones Jr., Ish Smith, Bones. Is Derek Jones Jr. playing ahead of Davon Reed? Probably in some line, in most lineups. Zeke Naji, maybe Derek Jones even plays in front of him in certain configurations. Maybe Zeke slides to the four, so you can work something like that out. But none of these are like home runs. Like none of these are lineups that I look at and I go, Denver is now equipped with all of the pieces to go and beat the Golden State Warriors. I just went over what it would look like if you signed Austin Rivers, Dante DiVincenzo, and Derek Jones Jr. Okay. Like, what would the rotation look like? And in all of them, I do think that I'll play. Like Dante DiVincenzo and Austin Rivers slide into your backup shooting guard, and Bones moves over to backup point guard. And Derek Jr., he probably competes at the very least with both Davon Reed and Zeke Naji for minutes at a forward spot as a backup forward. He's a little bit more ambiguous. Like, I don't know that he guarantees a slot over them, but he competes for one. So those are guys that Denver could sign using one of, like, they're either a veteran minimum for some of them or maybe the mid-level, and they probably would squeeze right into the rotation.
If they sign Dante DiVincenzo, I'm going to consider it to be a pretty huge success. I'm still very high on Dante. Like, I don't really understand why everyone's freaking out on Dante. It's weird.
Well, here's why though. Bones, Dante, Davon, Zeke, they've all shown enough for you to be high on them, but they're all kind of the same. Like, yeah, you're counting on all of them to be what you think they are, in like a full guaranteed role or whatever. And I don't think any of them have proven that over time. Even if we would bet on each of them individually, you compound your odds when you think they're all going to hit.
In other news, in lighter news, in better news, Nikola Jokic signs the supermax, or agrees to the supermax. That's done. For all the concerns about Tim Conley being gone, or Nuggets going to ask out because they lost the first round or whatever, we thought this was going to get done. It got done. As much as you're vexed by the free agency and offseason machinations, you got to feel pretty good about having Nikola Jokic for the next 5 years of his career, right?
This is why, like, some people are like, you know, I've heard some like, don't panic, this or that. Like, there's not a panic about are the Nuggets no longer good. There's
Right.
just like they're not as good as you hope to be. But that starting lineup, I still think it's the best of the Jokic era. Jokic is 27 years old. He's two-time MVP. And yet I think he's going to be better next year. You get Jamal Murray back. You got Michael Porter. Aaron Gordon, I think, is going to be better next year. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, I love alongside those guys. So they have a fantastic starting five. They have a fantastic best punch. The margins didn't fill in the way I hoped maybe 2 weeks ago.
You made this comment that it's and you were trying to be like, it's entirely speculative, but you and I kind of agree on this. This might be Nikola Jokic's last contract. Like, this could very well be, like, you know.
I was surprised at how much flack I took for that today. Put it out there. I just thought that was a thing that had. I'll put it this way. I'm alone in that. A lot of like writers kind of think like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Jokic retired at 32 or 33. That's what this contract takes him to.
For every comment that you've taken tonight that's negative, I want you to think about how many people just like listened and went like, "Oh, okay," and like nodded
the
because
silent nodders. Really, like, it's the same as if you ever go on like Nextdoor or if you ever go on like Yelp. It's like only crazy people. And so the negative comments, I'm always like, the people that usually do that usually have something prodding them to make those types of comments.
We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. We'll recap whatever's going on with the Nuggets or not. We want to hear your comments. Hit us on Twitter. Let us know. Hit us up on the YouTube chat. Let's hear it. I think overall, the Nuggets have had a disappointing start to their offseason, which is odd because they got the big thing done, which is they upgraded the 2 spot. They got a defender that can shoot, who's younger. That was a big move. Like, I don't want to underrate that. But the overall roster, I think, still needs work, and maybe that's a process that's going to take. You know, here's an important thing to remember: the Nuggets were not the same in March as they were in September, and that's been true pretty much every season. And that's true for most teams. They evolve, they change, they grow. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't try and do your best now, because you should. But it's also a reason to kind of keep your picture on the long. You can be disappointed now. You can be angry now. You can be frustrated now. But I think it's important to keep your eye on the long view. You got anything else before we get out of here?
That's it. Avs won day, and I really had the parade today. It really was cool, and I'm not going to lie. It was one of those things where I went down there, and one of the reasons I went down there is I just kind of wanted to see what it's like, get there and think about what would a Nuggets parade be like. And you could see it. I got to give one more credit. I know this isn't an Avs show. The Avs did a good job today. Did you think so? Like, I thought they did a good job personally of the parade. Like, they were engaging. They were fun. They didn't take themselves seriously. I followed the NHL pretty closely. We've talked about it a lot on the show. I followed it closely, and I have to say it was refreshing. Like, the way the NBA covers and talks about itself and the way the players interact with the people that watch and support them, so different from the NHL. And I just thought the Avs were so hilariously unassuming. Bednar cried. Like, the guys were goofy. It just was like one of these things where you're like, oh, wow, it's kind of cool when these guys aren't trying to be cool.
Yeah, it was pretty great. And also I think there's a lot that's built into with being a hockey fan, like the whole crowd singing all the small things.
And all of the chants, all of the little
things. And like all the little things.
In a cool way, man.
Yeah,
that was a great job.
Yeah. I did have one thought, though. Do you think they will let Jokic ride a horse in the parade? Because I think he should be on the buggy.
He should be on the trotter.
The trotter.
The trotter, man. Are you kidding me?
With like the Finals MVP trophy. That's like that's what he should have a sidecar for the Finals MVP trophy.
All day, that's all I was doing. Was just sitting there dreaming and just being like, just imagine.
And then DeAndre Jordan came into your life. So that's gonna wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Hope yourselves have yourselves a great Friday. We'll be back tomorrow with more coverage of the Nuggets offseason right here on Locked.